Hi, I'm Bossman Forex from Alpha Capital Trading, and here is why I took my US30 buys today during London session. So as you can see on the screen, currently I do have my buy trade over here, and you can see that I took a buy right around this demand area, and then price did go in my favor for some time, and I failed to close my profits, and I ended up being taken out on a break even sort of kind of trade. And this is exactly what I wanted to break down. So if we jump straight into on the Dow Jones over here on TradingView, you'll be able to see my analysis. So I'll just take you guys through very quickly why I took the trade. So if we can first of all hide everything, you do understand that I base my trades of market structure, supply and demand, among other things. And today I'll break down why I started with market structure. So if we look at the bigger picture over here, you'll notice that we have been forming, after we formed this high during the CPI news last week, we began a bearish drop with FOMC giving us even a further drop with the first first low formed, then had a higher low, a lower high, and then a lower low, and the series of lower highs and lower lows progressed. And as we near today's market structure, what you'll see is by the time we were finishing the week, last week, we'd formed a final lower low there. So at that point in time, that was my lowest point. So this was my lowest low, or rather my swing low. And normally what I usually anticipate from this kind of trades where we've just formed the lowest low on a Friday, I usually expect a bit of a pullback on Monday during London session to at least give us a bit more of a liquidity grab before we continue with our bearish trend. So that is exactly what I was waiting for. And with that in mind, I was waiting for the higher lower high, which is at this point, to be tested before we actually go down. So I was expecting this area to be broken, and then we just break it up slightly. So I wanted to see something like this, after which we do come and form like this towards the end of NYSE. Unfortunately, what ended up happening was during London session, we had pretty much a lot of consolidation. As you can see, we consolidated a lot around this area. And just prior to New York session, NYSE starting, we started seeing a bit of movement. So if I can now zoom in into this area, I can now turn on all the levels that I was looking for. So if we can highlight the things that we've seen, this is the most recent lower high. So this one, and this is the most recent one, followed by this one, which is more major in my opinion. So we have both of these lower highs. And what I wanted to see was a break of this lower high. We test this higher one, and then now we go down. And of course, I wouldn't want to see a break of that high because it would show me that there's still a lot of bullish momentum in the markets. So London session, we do have this lovely demand zone here, then price pushes up and then tries testing the zone, but does not test it completely, leaves behind some more piece of demand zone structure here. So as we mentioned last week, we have two zones in close proximity, something like this. So what we end up looking for is after ticking off the rest of the criteria, we look for demand, we look for buys at this demand with an expectation that we will hold this demand and we will thereafter push all the way back to the highs formed during that initial rally. So if you look here, we have an initial rally that brings price here, then we form the fast push to the upside, which is still this point. So technically, this is supposed to be our fast TP. But because it was a bit too tight, I decided to push my TP a bit higher based off market structure. So if that is the bias, then the second thing is now to wait for price to come here during New York session and then take out the equal lows that have just been formed, as I have highlighted here, after which we get that liquidity grab, which is usually expected by a test of this lower zone. And finally, we get the zone being respected like this. If we now look at this scenario here, you'll notice one interesting bit. You'll notice that this is the top zone that you're waiting for to be tested, and this is the lower one. So once the lower one was tested at this white line and we were active on the trade, My next bias here was to wait for the hourly candle to close above this zone. So that it means that this was just a liquidity grab to gain more orders before we continue in our bullish run until we get to this supply area before we can take sells. Unfortunately, what happened was, despite us having a very strong bullish reaction, we failed to close above the zone. And therefore, by closing within the zone, we got the signal or the confirmation that price might be struggling a bit and sellers might have already started kicking in. And it was evident by the next candle here that despite going all the way to our TP1 area, proceeded to shift bearish and close with a bearish kind of sentiment. So this in turn shows me that despite us having so many bullish orders within this time frame at this 1 hour, during this 1 hour period, the sellers eventually took over the market. So by that time, as I showed you on my screenshot, the stop loss was hit at a few pips in profit around this point. But if I was near my charts, I would have definitely taken some partial profits from this area, with the intention that after taking profits, I just shift my stop loss into profit and price progresses up there. So those are the key pointers from this trade. And I've also mentioned what I would have done differently in terms of taking profit. I believe in terms of my placement of SL, everything was okay. Only that this trade was giving us a relatively low risk to reward. I believe this would have been about a 1:2, 1:3 till this point. So that was not the best. Actually, the stop loss should have been just around this area to give us a 1:3, as I had done the analysis on my MT4. Then, as you can see, as I've mentioned, the moment we see candle closure within the zone, that tells us a lot about where the markets are going to be going. But the key pointers in this trade are the market structure, as we've seen from this lower highs and lower lows forming. Then the next thing that we've seen is a very key point, is that we had two zones in close proximity, and we gave more bias, or like we gave more preference to the origin of the move, the OTM. So the OTM was a very key area of us looking for the buys. And then the third thing was we wanted to see how the candles behaved once we were triggered into the trade. Those are the three main things. And would I do anything different from this trade? I think not, other than the one issue about taking profits. Of course, if we jump onto VIX real quick, you'll notice that VIX also misbehaved a bit. So if you look at around NYSE session, you will notice that we went down. So we started prior to the NYSE starting, we were pushing down, and that's why we were seeing the bullish run on US30. But then we've quickly had a shift in sentiment by VIX moving sharply to the upside. So that's why we're currently seeing the bearish drop. So all in all, this was a very good start it was a relatively good start to the week. As I've mentioned, we had a break-even trade. As you can see, based off this trade, you can zoom in there, you can see that one hit the sell in profit. For the buy level was at around this area, and then I should have taken partials here, but I failed to. But all in all, not such a bad start to the week, because we ended up having a break-even, and a break-even is much better than a loss. So thank you, guys. Hope this video is able to help you in terms of internalizing the key pointers that I look for when taking a trade. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.